The $20,000 graduation party, the look I'll never forget. I dropped $20,000 on my stepdaughter's graduation party. I thought everything would be perfect, until Megan walked into the backyard and gave me a look I'll never forget. It was a brutally hot June afternoon in Philadelphia, but the late sun was pouring a hazy, golden light over the yard. My spacious suburban backyard was meticulous, a labor of love and a small fortune. Twinkling fairy lights were strung high above the patio, and vibrant, freshly cut floral arrangements were placed on every surface. It was all designed to be luxurious yet warmly inviting. The dessert table was a work of art, towering stacks of custom cupcakes, artisanal pastries, and a 3-tier cake with Megan's scripted and elegant calligraphy. Bottles of chilled, sparkling champagne stood ready, gleaming in the afternoon sun. I'd hired an elite event planner, leveraged every favor from my designer friends, and personally obsessed over every detail. Nothing was left to chance. I stood by the French doors, my gaze sweeping the scene one last time. Everything had to be just right. The vintage crystal glasses, the perfect shade of buttercream on the cake, the background music low enough for conversation but still lively, the lighting soft enough to make everyone feel beautiful. All for Megan. I hoped that the moment she stepped into the party, she would feel the love, the effort, and the sheer scale of my dedication. But the atmosphere shifted the second Megan appeared. Her eyes weren't bright with gratitude or excitement, as I'd hoped. They were cold, sharp, and assessing like a seasoned inspector, evaluating every expensive detail. I managed to beam a smile and raise my hand in a welcoming gesture, but she just offered a minimal head nod and walked past, not saying a word. A crushing wave of dread washed over me. Did I not do enough? Was this some kind of passive-aggressive test I wasn't getting? The happy chatter and laughter of guests, friends, and family mingled with the cheerful background jazz, yet a knot of anxiety tightened in my stomach. Every glance Megan cast, every slight sweep of her eyes over the decorations, made me feel unsettled. I realized this party, which had consumed my money, time, and sanity, might not deliver the perfect happiness I'd paid for. Then I caught sight of them, Megan's birth parents, Eric and Tanya, standing together on the perimeter. Their eyes were calculating, their smiles thin and judgmental, watching my every move. They never missed an opportunity to critique my parenting or my spending on their daughter. I forced a social smile their way, attempting to project confidence, but their presence just amplified the suffocating tension. Megan eventually drifted toward the drinks table, picked up a flute of champagne, and her eyes met mine again. This time, the chill was replaced by something harder to name. Was it a challenge? Doubt, even a faint flicker of disappointment. I didn't know. I only knew that this moment signaled my meticulous planning was just the prelude, and the party I envisioned was over before it began. As Megan chatted effortlessly with her friends, her laughter and attention were directed everywhere but at me. I stood there watching her every move, every expression, and the brutal truth sank in. $20,000 and all my effort might not be enough to earn her acceptance. A heavy, unspoken premonition settled over me. There was something hiding behind that look, a secret, a brewing drama, or a huge surprise I hadn't prepared for. I tried to focus on my guests, greeting people and exchanging pleasantries, but my mind was spinning. Was this celebration going to be a cherished memory or the start of a stress-fueled family drama I couldn't control? A rare moment of quiet descended just as the last rays of the setting sun caught the highlights of Megan's blonde hair. She turned, gave me a fleeting smile, but her eyes remained full of unspoken meaning. I knew it then. All my preparation was just the opening act. This seemingly normal party was about to spiral into a string of intense drama and unpredictable challenges. And in that moment, I felt it crystal clear. Today wouldn't just be about graduation. It would be the day I was forced to face unacknowledged truths, simmering family conflicts, and the crushing realization that everything I had worked for, might be worthless in my stepdaughter's eyes. The party raged on. The music was loud, the laughter was genuine, but inside my chest, everything had gone cold. Megan stood in a cluster of her friends, sipping champagne, chatting, and smiling, yet I could feel every calculated side-eye, every fleeting glance she sent my way. It felt less like attention and more like a challenge. It didn't take long for Eric, her biological father, to make his move. He approached me with a practiced, politician's smile, but the icy glint in his eyes sent a shiver down my spine. "Well, you certainly went all out for this party," he said, his voice low and loaded with implication. He paused, looking toward Megan. "Though I must say, Megan doesn't look particularly impressed, does she?" I stiffened, gripping my drink, trying to hold on to my composure. I forced a smile. Oh, I think she'll love it. Everything was carefully planned. I trailed off, realizing my defense sounded more like a desperate justification than genuine confidence. Eric just nodded slowly, his smile still pasted on, but his eyes were dissecting every nervous twitch and every detail of my expensive shirt. Megan happened to turn and catch the last few words. A flash of something cold, a slight, cynical smirk crossed her face. I felt the air thicken, the tension spreading outward from our little corner. The entire vibe of the party seemed to shift instantly from cheerful to subtly suffocating. Despite the continuous jazz and distant laughter, then Tanya, Megan's mother, drifted over to the dessert table, pausing to look at me. Her expression was superficially friendly, but her voice was chillingly detached. $20,000, she purred. You really overspent on this, didn't you? I have to ask, my name, was it really worth it? My heart pounded harder. I knew Tanya didn't care about the dollar amount. She was testing me, pushing my buttons, waiting to see if I'd crack under their joint judgment. I took a deep breath, fighting to keep my voice even. Everything I do is for Megan, I replied smoothly, though I felt anything but calm, and that's when the real drama ignited. Megan walked right up to the three of us, her voice pitched just loud enough for me to hear distinctly. Did you seriously think all you needed was money to make this perfect, Dad? The ambient noise seemed to drop out for a heart-stopping moment. Heads turned. Everyone in the immediate vicinity was suddenly looking at us. My chest tightened painfully. I knew it. This wasn't a normal party. This was a confrontation. Megan was challenging my intentions, testing my reaction. I inhaled sharply, trying to keep my tone level and reasonable. Megan, I just wanted you to be happy. She cut me off, her sharp gaze pinning me down. Happy? You think I need a checkbook and expensive stuff to be happy? Her voice carried, laced with challenge and resentment, but still contained enough for the other guests to catch the drift. A terrible, cold realization washed over me. All the planning, the stress, the $20,000 investment hit might all be completely meaningless in her eyes. Megan didn't want luxury. She wanted understanding, respect, and maybe the truth that I had been avoiding saying out loud while I struggled to maintain my composure. Megan turned back to her friends, a bright smile back on her face, but her eyes still held that unmistakable look of defiance. I knew the night that was supposed to be her happiest moment had now become a quiet battle between my stepdaughter and me, fueled by the relentless scrutiny of her biological parents. The Philadelphia backyard was still twinkling, the fairy lights still sparkling, the music still playing, but for me, everything had slowed down, every detail fraught with tension. I knew this was only the beginning, and tonight was going to escalate far beyond anything I had budgeted for. The party air had grown heavy. Megan detached herself from her friends and approached the edge of the patio, her eyes sharp, her voice carrying that same defiant edge. You thought spending $20,000 was enough to make me happy, didn't you? Turns out, money can't buy what I really need. The volume was just loud enough for me to hear distinctly, but also enough for nearby guests to pause and cast curious glances. My heart hammered in my chest and my throat tightened. I forced a ragged breath. Megan, I only wanted you to feel special. Just for today. She didn't let me finish. Special? Or just a show? Everyone's laughing. But do you even know what I wanted? Her eyes flashed with genuine disappointment, searing through all my meticulous efforts. Everything I'd planned for weeks. Eric, her biological father, sauntered closer to me, his tone dripping with faux wisdom and genuine malice. Oh Megan, you are so right. But perhaps your stepdad still believes everything can be solved with a swipe of a credit card. What is he trying to prove, exactly? My jaw clenched. Not only was Megan attacking me, but her parents were standing there, flanking the situation, testing me. I knew every word spoken now would be dissected and judged. I had no escape. Megan turned to her group of friends, her voice intentionally rising a pitch. He thinks money buys everything. But genuine connection, real attention, did you just forget about that, Dad? A wave of utter helplessness washed over me. All the effort, the $20,000, the painstaking planning, it felt completely worthless. I stood there, looking at Megan, feeling a sickening blend of heartbreak and shame, but I couldn't let her commandeer the entire event. I took the deepest breath I could manage, striving for a calm voice. Megan, I know I'm not perfect, but I tried my best to make you happy today. She gave a small, humorless laugh. Tried your best. Maybe you never really listened to me. You only ever do what you want. The Philadelphia backyard was still shimmering with the soft glow of the fairy lights, the music still playing. But for me, everything was suddenly cold and alien. All my efforts, all the expense, seemed to be dissolving into the thick June air. I realized this party wasn't just a graduation celebration. It was a crucible, a silent, intense psychological battle between me, my stepdaughter, and her entire birth family. I glanced around and saw a few guests shuffling nervously. They exchanged uncertain looks, unsure whether to watch the growing spectacle or pretend they hadn't heard the outburst. Megan stood poised, holding her champagne flute with an air of confident defiance, as if she knew she held all the power in this confrontation. Then Tanya, Megan's mother, edged closer to the dessert table, her smile saccharine but her tone like chipped ice. "You've spent too much on this party, haven't you? $20,000. I wonder if it was even worth it." I knew Tanya was pushing, not about the money, but about my character. I took another slow breath, trying to keep my composure. Everything I do is for Megan. But Megan, ensuring her point landed, cut in sharply. "Happy? You think I need money and expensive stuff to be happy? That's ridiculous." The cold dread returned, intensified. Every eye was on me. A joyful celebration turned into a tense, emotional arena. I felt the pressure and exhaustion, but a flicker of resolve ignited. I wouldn't let them completely dismantle the night. In that brief moment of clarity, I realized Megan wasn't just challenging me tonight. She was testing whether I could truly see her and empathize with her. This party had moved far beyond catering, decorations, or dollar signs. It had become the ultimate test of my relationship with her, and my standing against her family. As the evening sun finally dipped below the houses, I knew one thing for certain. Tonight wouldn't end with mere accusations. The secrets, the simmering conflicts, and the surprises I hadn't foreseen were waiting just around the corner. The air was now thick, suffocating. Megan stepped to the center of the yard, where most of the guests were gathered near the elaborate table. The fairy lights cast a bright, slightly harsh glow on her face, making her smile look both radiant and utterly cold. Her voice cut through the background music, clear and carrying enough for everyone to hear. "Dad, I didn't need this lavish party. I needed you to listen to me, to understand me, not just put on a $20,000 show." A collective gasp rippled through the guests. Eyes went wide, and several couples quickly exchanged knowing, uncomfortable glances. My heart sank, plummeting into my stomach. Every word Megan spoke felt like a direct hit. She wasn't just challenging me. She was exposing all my effort and expense as shallow and performative. I struggled to remain composed. "Megan, I just wanted you to be happy. Everything I did was for you, just for today." But she pressed harder, unrelenting. "Happy? You think happy is gourmet food, a fancy cake, and everyone looking at me like I'm the perfect princess? I wanted one simple thing, one question answered. Do you actually care about me?" Then Eric, her father, stepped up, placing a hand on my shoulder in a gesture that felt anything but friendly. His voice was patronizing. "You see, she's speaking her truth. Money isn't the answer. My name, you spent the effort and the cash." But Megan needed genuine attention. A hot flush of anger and burning shame rushed through me. I looked at Megan, my eyes stinging. "I thought I was doing good," I whispered, the tremor in my voice betraying my composure. "I did all of this to give you a day to remember." Megan offered a chilling, cynical laugh, her gaze sharp as a knife. "Memorable? Honestly, I'm just annoyed. Everything you did was to show off your wealth, to stroke your ego. I don't need it. I need you to truly care." I stood there speechless. The party had instantly lost all its joy. The guests were silent, listening to Megan speak, every word peeling back the layers of pretense I had wrapped around the event. The party I poured my heart and wallet into had become the volatile stage for a very public family blow-up. Then Tanya, Megan's mother, glided up beside me, her voice deceptively soft, yet laced with accusation. "See, my name. She doesn't care about the money. You need to learn how to listen, or this party is going to turn into a complete disaster." I took a deep, steadying breath, fighting the urge to let the tears fall. This wasn't about cake, lights, or champagne anymore. This was a brutal clash over emotion, empathy, and responsibility. I realized the party was exactly the test Megan had set, a test to see if I truly cared about her, or just about the image and the cost. In that excruciating moment, a tidal wave of shame, hurt, and newfound resolve surged through me. I knew that from this point on, every word, every reaction, would determine not just the outcome of this night, but the fate of my relationship with my stepdaughter. Megan turned back to her friends, a faint smile back on her face, but her eyes were still fiercely challenging. I understood with cold clarity. The peace was officially broken. The night was only beginning, and the inevitable conflicts, the deeper drama, and the secrets I hadn't prepared for were coming, strong and unavoidable. The party atmosphere had completely dissolved into a tense, charged silence. Megan stood center stage in the yard, the glow of the fairy lights illuminating her face, her expression a mix of sardonic triumph and underlying pain. She took a deliberate step toward me, her voice calm but carrying immense weight. "Dad, I know everything." I froze, my heart seizing in my chest. What do you know?" My voice was a shaky whisper, adrenaline spiking as the dread I'd felt all night crystallized into genuine fear. Megan's gaze swept across the silent guests before locking onto mine. "I know you spent all this money on this party just to prove something to my parents too. Show them you're high roller, that you're wealthy, and you can provide for me better than they ever could. But you missed the single most important thing. I don't need your money. I needed your genuine attention. Dad, do you get it now?" A deafening silence enveloped the entire backyard. I could hear the faint, shallow breathing of the nearest guests. Every eye was glued to us. It wasn't just Megan facing me. It was her parents, Eric and Tonya, standing nearby, ready to deliver the final verdict. Eric approached, his expression a smug, mocking half-smile. "Ah, the little genius figured it out. You thought you could hide it. The money, the party, all of it. Just window dressing." Megan saw through the facade. My chest felt like it was encased in ice. Not only had Megan exposed my motive, but her parents were reveling in my discomfort, watching my every involuntary twitch as if I were a performer on trial. I knew that every subsequent word I uttered would be ammunition. Megan continued, her voice cold and steady. "I also know about the fights you had with Mum. I know you told your friends I was high maintenance, that I was spoiled. All the truths you didn't have the guts to face me with. I saw that your love wasn't just coming from the heart, Dad, it was coming from a place where you needed to constantly prove your worth to everyone around you." I stood paralyzed, a crushing blend of shame and self-recrimination washing over me. $20,000, all the painstaking effort, it was meaningless. It was only the expensive surface, failing to touch her heart. The atmosphere was electric, taut with unspoken emotion. The guests remained frozen, listening as Megan stripped away all the pretense. "I don't need you to prove anything. I need you to see me, listen to me, and genuinely love me." Tonya, seizing the opportunity, stepped up and gently placed a hand on my arm, a touch that felt entirely insincere. "See, this is what matters. My name, not the party or the money, but the feeling and the understanding. You need to learn how to face her, or you're going to lose her trust completely." I drew a long, ragged breath, feeling both immensely heavy and strangely relieved. This was the true turning point. I realized that everything I had strived for, the elite planner, the perfect cake, the flawless details, was utterly futile because I hadn't truly listened to my stepdaughter. Megan's eyes remained locked on mine, a mix of challenge and desperate expectation. I felt my entire being tremble. I couldn't stand here paralyzed, and I couldn't hide behind money or material things any longer. I had to act. I had to show genuine emotion. I took a final deep breath, meeting her gaze head-on. "Megan, I am so sorry. I became too focused on the surface, on all the expensive window dressing, and I forgot the most important thing: to listen to you, to care about you with my heart." Megan nodded slightly, but the smirk on her lips still held a trace of defiance. "Words aren't enough, Dad. I need you to do something. I need you to prove that your affection isn't just a number on a receipt." I felt a strange surge of energy in that moment, both weighty with realization and bursting with tentative hope. This party wasn't just a graduation anymore. It had become the critical inflection point for my relationship with Megan. Looking around the backyard, the fairy lights felt a little warmer, but the scene was far from a normal celebration. The guests stood silent, many watching with palpable curiosity. The truth was out. The simmering drama had boiled over, and every action from here would determine the outcome, for better or for worse. The party air was now thick with unyielding tension. The light from the fairy lights created cold, long shadows across the Philadelphia backyard. I stood opposite Megan, my heart pounding in my ribs, knowing that my next words and actions would either salvage or utterly destroy our relationship. Megan stepped closer, her voice slicing through the silence like a knife. "Dad, I'm done with apologies. I need action. I need to see that you genuinely care, not that you're just doing things to show off or to prove a point to a room full of people." I drew a shaky breath, a wave of desperate helplessness washing over me. All the expense, all the perfect party planning, suddenly felt like ash. You're right, I was wrong. I thought throwing money at things was enough. But you're right, I forgot the most important thing you. Megan narrowed her eyes, but she didn't retreat. Just talking isn't enough. You have to show me. Action, Dad. Genuine commitment. Not just for tonight, but forever. In the corner, Eric and Tanya watched, their eyes calculating and expectant. Eric stepped forward, his voice calm but sharp. You hear that? There's no backpedaling now. If you want to earn back her trust, you have to prove it through actions, through sincerity, not through money or extravagant parties. I felt the entire crushing weight of the situation on my shoulders. Part of me wanted to bolt, to escape the public scrutiny, but another part knew this was the moment of truth. I had to face her. I had to change, or I would lose my stepdaughter for good. Megan moved in even closer, her eyes boring into mine as if looking straight into my soul. Do you see, Dad? Everyone is watching, waiting for you to prove yourself. You did all this to impress, but I wasn't impressed. I need you to understand me, to truly love me. Not just today, but for life. My throat constricted with emotion. In that singular moment, I realized all the drama, all the secrets, all the conflict from part 1 to part 5 had led us here. Every word, every glance was testing me, and one false step would shatter everything. I took a forward step, reaching out and gently taking Megan's hands in mine. My voice was trembling, but the words were the most honest I had ever spoken to her. I promise, I won't let things be about the optics anymore. I will listen. I will genuinely care about you, not with money or with a perfect party. From this moment on, I want you to know I'm here for you, with my heart, not with my wallet. Megan was silent, looking deep into my eyes. A few agonizing seconds passed, and the world seemed to hold its breath. Then, slowly, she gave a small nod, though her eyes still held that challenging intensity. Words are cheap, Dad, but at least, you're finally starting to see it. Behind her, Eric offered a tight, subtle smile, while Tanya let out a soft, almost satisfied sigh. The tension in the party was far from gone, but for the first time since the night began, I felt a fragile thread of hope that my relationship with Megan might be salvaged. All the drama, all the conflict, all the disappointment, and the pressure of the lavish party now seemed to find a sudden, emotional release. But I knew one thing clearly: tonight was only the beginning of the healing process, and only genuine, consistent action would secure my stepdaughter's trust. Weeks later, the old address was a location I deliberately avoided revisiting. I moved into a smaller space, with a window that looked out onto a quiet neighborhood park. In the mornings, soft sunlight streamed through the sheer curtains, and the distant sound of children playing was a soothing, gentle melody. The harsh glare of the party lights was gone, replaced by a profound quiet. The forced laughter and the judging eyes were nowhere to be found. It was just me, and the space to genuinely reflect on everything that had occurred. Megan and I began communicating more, not about gifts or grand expenses, but about the things that truly mattered: her college life, her aspirations, her genuine feelings, and even the fears and pressures she had never shared before. I listened. She opened up. For the very first time, I felt the authentic closeness that I had foolishly believed money and perfect planning could purchase. Tanya and Eric also shifted their approach. They no longer focused on image or wealth. Instead, they recognized the need to support a genuinely sustainable relationship between me and Megan, primarily by respecting our space and her emotional needs. I realized that the spectacular graduation party had only been the highly visible tip of the iceberg. All the underlying emotion, the devoted listening, and the honest affection were the only things with lasting value. One afternoon, as the setting sun cast long shadows through the golden leaves outside the window, Megan and I sat together, quietly watching the children darting through the park. The silence was comfortable, a true sense of connection filling the space. She reached out and took my hand, her voice soft but certain. I know you tried, Dad, and now you understand. I don't need the extravagance. I just need you to always be here, to listen to me and to walk with me. I smiled, a profound sense of lightness spreading through my body. After all the tension, the drama, and the trials of that night, I finally grasped a simple, monumental truth: genuine affection cannot be bought. Every meaningful relationship requires listening, understanding, and actions that originate from the heart. In the days that followed, Megan and I spent more intentional time together. We cooked simple meals, took long walks around the park, and talked about small, meaningful things, moments I had previously missed because I was too fixated on appearances. I realized that true happiness wasn't found in lavish parties or expensive gifts, but in presence, genuine care, and shared time. Even Tanya and Eric began to see me differently. The judging stares were gone, replaced by respectful acknowledgement and, occasionally, sincere advice. I realized that family connections aren't just built on obligation or financial support, but on mutual feeling, empathy, and patience. One quiet morning, Megan and I stood by the window, watching the sunbeams dance on the last remaining autumn leaves. She turned to me and gave a small, warm smile. "I can see the change in you, Dad. And I know you won't just talk about it anymore, you'll do it. I trust you." I took a deep breath, a feeling of deep warmth spreading through my body. After all the drama, the conflict, and the harsh words, I finally understood that love and trust are not things you can coerce or prove with a bank statement. They must be built daily through action, deep listening, and unflinching authenticity. The extravagant graduation party was now just a costly footnote, but it had taught me a priceless lesson. Family, parental love, and profound understanding are the most enduring things, and sincere effort from the heart can always heal divides that once seemed insurmountable. Looking out the window at the peaceful scene, I smiled. I knew my relationship with Megan was fundamentally changed, more mature, more honest, and full of quiet promise. And for the first time, I felt a true sense of peace. Because my stepdaughter and I had finally found common ground, not with money, not with a party, but with our hearts.